The year 1986 came and went without a Bomberman game, save for the MSX port of the NES game, but I'm only counting original release dates here. 1987 saw the release of Bomber King for the NES, the first game we'll be looking at that was released everywhere, though in the West it was retitled Robo Warrior. Let's have a look and, are you sure this is Bomberman? Looks nothing like him. And though there is a lot of bombing things to progress involved, we mostly fight with this laser here, at least at the start. Why are we looking at this game? It was listed on Hudson Soft's official list of Bomberman games, though only the Japanese release of the game even mentions Hudson Soft. The international release doesn't mention Hudson Soft at all. So, did they make this game or not? There appears to be some confusion here and I can't figure it out. It seems to me Hudson Soft was involved in its publication in Japan and decided to file it under their Bomberman games for some reason, but I can't say for certain. The only other connection it has to Bomberman is with the MSX release, which has a really long death sequence. Getting back on topic, the box art for the MSX version recycled the character from the NES box art. But that's about it. The story has no connection to Bomberman whatsoever, or stories. The Japanese and English stories are quite different. Our character isn't even called Bomberman or anything resembling it. In Japanese, this is Knight, and in English, he's called Zed. I wouldn't really consider this a Bomberman game, but it is listed as such, so it needed to be mentioned here. Moving on. 88 and 89 were 2 years in a row with no new Bomberman games. Don't get used to it though. We are about to hit the 90s. And we start the decade strong in August of 1990 with Bomber Boy for the Game Boy. The second game to be released everywhere, if you count Bomber King as the first. And here we start to get into some name shenanigans. You see, Bomber Boy didn't stay Bomber Boy. In Europe, the game was renamed Dynablaster, and in North America, it was renamed Atomic Punk. As far as I know, there's never been an official statement on why they renamed it, but the consensus on Europe is that it still had a lot of three-letter abbreviations in living memory. You know, IRA, RAF, ETA. So they weren't too keen on selling a game called Bomberman. Makes sense, I guess, but why rename it Atomic Punk in North America? It doesn't exactly make it less violent. Were they trying to make it more violent? Looking at the box art, we see the European box zoomed in on the character because they really liked that character, I guess. Meanwhile, the North American box art has this entirely different character. What was wrong with the original box art? Did they think this would appeal more to the North American audience? Well, whatever. The Japanese manual doesn't have a story for us, but the Japanese guidebook tells us that Kid here is the star of the game, freeing his fellow robots from the humans that captured them and put them into factories. The European version has no story, but the North American story is a real treat. See, this is Atomic Punk. He is the son of Bomberman. They live on a planet called Atomica, which has been invaded by radiation thieves called Nukies, who have captured everyone in their way and trapped them in factories. So Atomic Punk and Bomberman split up. Atomic Punk will free the people on the surface while Bomberman returns to the underground to defeat the enemies there. Wait, if he returns there, shouldn't he be Lode Runner at this point? I guess he turned back into Bomberman. Or if this is the context of the NES game, why does it say that he returns there? I mean, the story is exclusive to the North American version anyway, so I don't know. We boot the game up and find Game A and Game B, although they were labeled Bomber Boy and Bomberman in the original Japanese version. Game B is a re-release of the NES game, except on the Game Boy, and the stage is a bit smaller, and the Fire Pass item doesn't appear here. And at the end, Bomberman escapes and becomes human again. Wait, escapes? Didn't he decide to go there while Atomic Punk takes care of things on the surface? And for that matter, how is he the father of Atomic Punk? Can robots procreate? He must have fathered him after becoming human, but this game takes place after Atomic Punk was born, so Bomberman must have become human after the NES game, then fathered Atomic Punk, then turned back into a robot, and then this game takes place where he becomes human again. Or the North American story isn't canon. Trust me, there's a lot more confusion where that came from throughout the franchise. But of course, the meat of the game is in Game A. Here we actually have a world map with 8 areas and a shop called My Town in the middle where we can buy and sell power-ups. This girl who runs the shop remains unnamed in all versions, sadly. At first we can only buy bomb-ups, fire-ups, and elixirs that allow us to respawn after taking a hit. But completing levels unlocks power-ups in the shop and you can tackle the levels in any order, so go for whichever power-ups are most important to you. The hardest level, Faria, has no power-ups, so it's meant to be beaten last. The way power-ups work here is that you can choose which ones from your inventory you want to equip for every single stage. Bomb-up, fire-up, and skates are reusable, but all others can only be used once per item slot. So if you equip the remote control and beat the stage, it's gone unless you have another one in the inventory. And if you die, you lose everything you had equipped, even the 3 basic power-ups. And you don't find many power-ups in the stages, so make sure you have a good stockpile of them before equipping all of them and being left with nothing. You get money by beating stages, and each level has its own tile set and its own little twist, except for the shortest one, Haval. Stages in Grad are split into 4 segments, with these caves appearing in the hard blocks that teleport you to the other segments. Stages in Thulia wrap around themselves vertically, and hard blocks can be destroyed if you bomb them twice. Windria has strong winds that push you around. Walther is covered in water, which doesn't do anything as far as I can tell, and Faria has flames for hard blocks that will kill you if you run into them. One difference to note from the other game is that if time is running out, the screen starts flashing and we get this hectic music. Timeout kills you here instead of spawning enemies, but you can equip this timer power-up to make the clock go slower. There's also this rare Game Boy power-up that gives you extra points. Bombing the exit door does nothing in this mode, and instead of a question mark, we get an exclamation point for invincibility, along with different music for it. We face a whole new set of enemies here. These pieces of cardboard here are called Fleepies. There's Spid, which will chase after you and run away from bombs, Rocky, who can disguise as a block, and Bad Bomber. So is Bomber already its own species here? The flames here don't seem to have a name in English, but in Japanese they are called Mora or something like that, I think. It is noteworthy that fire kills fire here. Your own fire, that is. The fires that are hard blocks kill you, but not the fire enemies. Only your fire kills the fire enemies. After each level, we free the people trapped inside, and they call us Kid. Another thing they didn't change from the Japanese original to coincide with the story in the manual. And after the last level, we run away from the collapsing building and are celebrated as a hero. The end. Certainly an interesting spin on the Bomberman formula. But this game is very significant for something I haven't mentioned yet. It's right here in the title screen. Versus Mode. With 2 consoles, 2 cartridges, and a link cable, you can experience the very first Bomberman Battle Mode. There's Panel Mode, which starts you off with no power-ups, so you need to collect them in the stage, and Powerful Mode, which maxes you out from the start. And you can choose 1 to 5 required wins to win the match. Player 1 starts in the top left and Player 2 in the bottom right, and is a darker version of Bomberman just as we'd expect. You could argue this is the first appearance of Black Bomber, although if you are Player 2 the colors are reversed so you always play as the lighter one. Oh, and this music I've been playing? That is not the music for Battle Mode, but for the bonus stages in Game B. What did you think? No, they made an entirely different track for the Battle Mode here that would never appear again in the franchise. In fact, I think none of the original music in this game ever appears again anywhere else. Too bad. I kinda liked the Faria music. But be that as it may, this is the very first Bomberman Battle Mode music.